Hello and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn with the Librarian, which is being offered by the Cleveland Health Sciences Library here at Case. We offer these Lunch and Learns once a month. So be sure to check out our campus groups page for upcoming sessions. The link, I will put it in the chat right now. So today's topic is Discover Scholarly Impact with Scopus. And my name is Jackie Mays, and I will be moderating today's session. So before we start, a few housekeeping items. So questions, if you have questions, please place them in the Zoom chat box. You can open the chat box by clicking the chat button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll be running a live question and answer session after this 15-minute presentation, and any questions will be answered at that time. Links as we go along, I will post a relevant links in the chat, so be on the lookout for those. Also slides, please note that we will email the recording and the slides to you after this webinar. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce today's speaker, Tom Hayes, who is our collection development and engagement librarian. Welcome, Tom. Thanks for talking about Scopus.
Sure. Thanks, Jackie. So I'm going to be talking about Scopus today. This is going to be a whirlwind because, again, I've got about 15 minutes. So Scopus is a citation database, and it was launched by Elsevier in 2004. It covers about 100 million records across science, technology, medicine, social sciences, arts, and humanities, and it provides tools to analyze and track and visualize research. Its sort of partner in crime is SciVal. I've done a presentation on SciVal. There should be a recording of that if you want to watch that. SciVal actually allows you to dive quite a bit deeper into the analyzation of research and impact, and it sits on top of Scopus. We also have access to Embase, which is a different database, but it is also from Elsevier, and it is a citation database. Scopus is used primarily for literature reviews, finding citations, and again, evaluating journal or author impact. And there are a few things that you can do in Scopus, but I guess before I go too far down, I'm going to show you how to get to it. So what you're seeing on the screen in front of you is the Health Sciences Library website. And if you come to this website, you can just sort of slide down and choose databases. And you can type in Scopus, and our database will come up. This is the recommended way we tell people to go through, simply because it will trigger single sign-on. And once single sign-on is triggered, it will prompt you to log in with your case ID and password. And then you will have access to Scopus, which hopefully you're seeing on your screen right now. So one of the uses of Scopus is for searching documents for literature reviews. And you simply just click search up here, and you will see the search interface. So you have your documents, authors, research, discovery, and organizations. One of the main reasons I use it is because I am the lead for systematic review services here at the Health Sciences Library. And part of systematic review best practices is to search Medline, Embase, Scopus, Cochrane, and something else like Google Scholar. You can also throw in Web of Science. It just depends on what you like. Web of Science and Scopus are very similar, and they are competing products, but they're different companies. So that's just a generic example. Sometimes you would search, CINAHL or other databases like that, but those are the main databases that you will search. Scopus is important because it has over 100,000 conference proceedings, which are often considered gray literature. So if you're doing a search in a systematic review and you want to find content that may have been presented but was never published, conference proceedings are one of the ways that you find that information. So in Scopus, here, just doing a document search. I'm not going to go into this simply because it's just kind of a fundamental thing. You can type in keywords. You can type in, as it shows there, article titles, abstracts, things like that. You can also do what's called an advanced search here underneath. And again, I'm just going to kind of breeze through this. One thing I tend to do is create my searches in a separate document, so in a text file, and then I would just paste it into Scopus. And down here at the bottom, you can see the syntax that you use. So if anybody does searches in PubMed, for instance, and you do title abstract field searches, you can do the same thing here, but you would just have a variant on the syntax. Also, something to know about Scopus is it does not have a controlled vocabulary. So, like with Medline, you have mesh, and with Embase, you have mtree. With Scopus, there is no controlled vocabulary. So, you are simply searching the records as they are indexed in Scopus. Let's see. So, one of the things you might want to do in Scopus is look up an author. So, I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got Anthony Fauci kind of queued up here. So you would type in the last name of the author and the first initial and hit search. Um, when you get to the result page, you will see that there are variant spellings of an author's name, and you just kind of need to take that into consideration. You can also see the number of documents they have, their affiliation, and that kind of information. I'm just simply going to click on the main entry. And you're going to see the information that is provided for this particular author. So you can see it is Anthony Fauci. You can see the university that he's associated with. You can see the Scopus ID and an ORCID ID. Scopus uses its own ID system, which is different from ORCID. So just be aware that there are things as there are Scopus IDs. You can see the number of citations that he has received. You can see the documents that he has been an author on in some way. And you can see the H index. And I'm not going to go too far into that, but H index just simply means that in this case, there have been at least 197 articles that have been published with Anthony Fauci as an author that have been cited 197 times. So it's just kind of a heuristic to show impact of an article or set of articles. You can see there are some other options. You can set alerts, save lists, edit the profile if you own it. So if you want to look up yourself, you can find your own profile and edit that profile. And a part of that also is making sure your names all link to one entry. You can see the documents that have been authored, and you can change this by highest cited, newest, that kind of thing. You can look at impact, cited by, and all these other aspects here. A little further down to the side, you can see citation trends. And if you want to analyze the author output, you can actually click that and you can see a much more visual representation. So you can see where, what subjects the author is published in, where the majority of them are. Again, the H index, co-authors, and general information like that. All right. So moving right along, I'm going to also show you how to search sources, which is important for a couple of reasons. First of all, you might want to search a journal just to find out what that particular journal's impact is. So in this case, I am just going to use the example of the New England Journal of Medicine. And I'm going to click on that entry. Here you can see we have one result. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that to take a look at the New England Journal of Medicine. And this is going to give you the title information, the ISBNs, ISSN, publisher, as well as details about its impact. So over here on the right, you can see the site score. The site score is very similar to the journal impact factor, which is again in Web of Science. And I actually have a screenshot, which I'll just jump over and show you real quick. So this is Claravit. So this is the Web of Science, and this is a journal citation report. So here you can see again the New England Journal of Medicine. It provides very much similar information, publisher information, ISSN, journal abbreviations. But then you can look at the journal performance. There is a little bit of difference between the way journal impact factor and site score are ratios. There's a little bit of a difference in the way Clarivet does it versus the way Scopus and Elsevier do it. Uh, Clarivet looks at the last 2 years. Uh, Scopus looks at the last 3 to 4 years. But you can see the calculation is pretty much the same. So you've got an impact factor here of 78 and 77 based on your time period. Over here in Scopus, it's a little higher with the site score, but you can see the 2025 site score tracker is close. It's very similar. So essentially, you're getting sort of the same information. I would also just like to say really quickly that journal impact factor was always meant to be a measure of the value of a journal. So, as a collection development librarian, if I was going to be in a position where I got to purchase two different journals and I have a limited budget, I would look at the journals and I would decide which one I'm going to buy based on the impact factor. Journal impact factor was not supposed to be a measure of researcher performance, which it is sometimes used for today. Just be aware that the original intent was just to determine the impact of a journal. But here again, in the site score does a similar thing. So it shows you the impact of this particular journal. And down here, you can see the category and you can see it's medicine, general medicine. You can see the rank. So the New England Journal of Medicine ranks number 2 out of the 668 that Scopus has in indexes, and it's in the 99th percentile. So that's some information. There's more information over here as well. If you want to look at these metrics, which again, I'm not going to go into. It's quite a little rabbit hole. You can see trends, and you can see it by year over here on the right. And you can see the content and coverage by year. You can save and export, view all the documents, things like that. I'm going to go back to the sources because another thing you might want to do is search by a subject area. So if you have some research that you have completed and you're finishing an article and you're trying to decide where you want to submit the article, I'm assuming you would have at least one idea of where you're going to make a submission. But if you just wanted to see what other journals were available, Scopus is one of the ways that you can do that. So if you go into the subject area, again, there are a broad number of subject areas that Scopus covers, but I would look at medicine. It is, if I can spell it. And under the heading of medicine, you can see the different subject areas. So if I were interested in pulmonary respiratory medicine, I can filter by that. And then within these results, I can see, according to Scopus, they have 254, and it's ranked by site score. So again, you can see the one that is the most impactful. So in this case, Lancet Respiratory Medicine. You can see its site score, its percentile, citations, documents, and so forth. And then you can more importantly see the other journal titles that might be relevant within this particular subject area. And you can export this list. So you can download the source list here if you wanted to do that. And then you can also look at the various publisher and address information if you wanted to get into contact with this particular journal. Okay. And I think in the 15 minutes that I have, that's about what I wanted to cover. When you do a search, there are other avenues that you can explore. So again, you can do a general document search or an advanced document search, which is what you would do for just a general literature search. And again, I showed you authors, but you can look for researchers. And, you know, if there is a particular research area that you're interested in, or even a geographic area, you can find researchers and potentially connect. And you can search by subject and keywords. So if there are areas of research that you're interested in, you can find other researchers who are in this area And you can also search by organizations, um, and see the information about this. Again, SciVal also does a similar thing. So you can get your, overview of the organization, how many documents have been published, how many authors there have been, subject trends over time. SciVal goes quite a bit deeper, and that's what I would recommend for any kind of analysis of an organization or even an author at depth. I would look at SciVal rather than Scopus, but you can see general overviews. You can see the organizational structure, collaborators, and SciVal and Scopus all have this thing called Sustainable Development Goals that they track. All right. So, Jackie, I'm going to stop here.
Okay.
And if there are any
Um,
questions that people have, yep,
yeah, go ahead, Tom. You can go in.
sorry.
Yeah, you can, if you want to dive into questions, that's totally fine.
Okay. Let's see what's here. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions. If anybody has any, please just put them in the chat.
And we can use this time too as a bit of discussion. So questions, or if you would like Tom to look at a certain part of Scopus, we can do that as well. Following up from this lunch and learn, looks like we have one question that came in. What is the range of the site score? And that's coming from
I
Mary.
don't know actually what the upper end of it is. The lower end would be 0. I do not know what the upper end could be. Um, if anybody else happens to know, feel free to chime in. I think, I mean, it can just continually rise. Um, looking at, for instance, what's on the screen right now, the Cancer Journal has a site score of 1154. So again, it's a ratio. So it's just going to be whatever set of numbers from the last 4 years divided into the most recent year.
All right. Well, so if you have any questions beyond today's session, you can also email askchsl@case.edu or email Tom directly. I will go ahead and put that information into the chat box here.
Yeah, I can throw some, there were some things that I kind of glossed over. So in the research guides, um, let's see. I have one that discusses impact factor versus site score, and I'm going to put it in the chat. Some of the measures that are included. So, like here with SciVal, it discusses field weighted citation impact, which is a way of measuring impact within a field. So one of the things that could be a problem is if you try to measure impact for like art history versus physics, the two disciplines are completely different and they're completely different in the way they publish. So measuring impact is difficult across those two different fields. So when you do a field weighted citation impact, it measures within the discipline. And then again, there's a discussion of H index, And in Scopus and in SciVal, you'll see what's called an H5 index, which is a 5-year term as opposed to one. Um, so those are just some of the terminology that's kind of important to tease out. And I think Vivian has a guide for Scopus as well, if anyone's interested in looking at that.
All right, well, we can wrap up here if no one else has any other questions. Thank you, Tom, for presenting on this. I feel like this was a very good overview, and I learned a few things today myself. So the full recording of today's session will be sent soon, and you can find all of our recordings and CHSL's videos on our YouTube session, on our YouTube channel, excuse me. And I linked that in the chat as well. So we hope to see you at the next Lunch and Learn, which is on June 10th, and it's on copyright, library licenses, and AI. So thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thanks, Jackie.